Mhm. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. So, joining me today is Michelle. Welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you, Bernadette, for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So happy to have you. So, where about are you, Michelle? Where in the world are you?
I, that's fine. I live in the United States. I live in uh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Are you guys getting some of the smokes from Canada?
We're getting not quite yet, but yeah, it's definitely a little cloudy though too, but not as much as what you're having in Canada and that you would see in New York.
Oh, it's so bad.
Mhm.
I feel like a
No,
zombie today with headache and my throat. Yeah.
yeah, definitely prayers for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so to start, can you tell us more about you and what do you do?
Sure. Well, my name is Michelle Steiner, and I'm a disability writer and photographer. And I also work as a teacher's aide in a school.
Mhm.
And I live in Pennsylvania with my husband and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow.
Oh, nice. Can you tell us more of your role? What is a disability writer?
Right. Well, what I do as a disability writer is I write articles on my life with having a learning disability.
Mm,
I started a few years ago with my first article was published on the Mighty about my struggle with opening up doors with limited hand dexterity. And I've had several articles published with them.
mm,
I've also been published in some other places, Word Gathering, Imagine the World as One magazine.
mhm,
And I've also had, I started my own blog called Michelle's Mission a few years ago as well. And I put on disability articles. And I also put in my photography that I get to take as well.
mhm,
And just recently, I've had three stories published in an anthology.
mhm.
Uh, so, yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah, that's really cool.
thank you.
You're welcome. Can you tell us more of your disability that got you into doing what you're doing today?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have a learning disability. I have dyscalculia. I have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands, and I have visual perception issues.
Mhm,
I was diagnosed with having the learning disability in kindergarten, but they didn't define it as dyscalculia or
mm,
dyslexia. It was more of an umbrella term at that point. We
mm,
just knew I wasn't going to be a mathematician at that age, and
mm,
I was struggling a lot with counting and tying my shoes and
mm,
dot to dot pages. And sure
mhm,
enough, they recommended that I get evaluated for having one. And sure enough, I do have one.
mm.
And I had to repeat kindergarten the following year in a new school in our district. And I began to receive specialty services for instruction so that I could learn and be successful. And that's where that began.
Hmm. Oh, that's so inspiring, I think.
Thank you.
Um, the work you're doing, I love it because it's empowering those who need anyone to look up to. Um, I don't know if I'm diagnosed with any specific disability, but I do know that I've always struggled. I've
Mhm.
always stayed in the C and B. Sometimes I would get a few A's. Um,
Mhm.
I know that my memory and learning process is impacted after I got mentally sick.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
don't know exactly what it's like for you, but I know I've experienced some form of disability because I would stutter. And then even up to this date, I have to think. If I'm talking to someone, I look away. I'm putting a picture in my mind together to kind of tell them what I'm telling them. And yeah, um, what are your thoughts on how society looks at people with disabilities, especially within education?
I think that a lot of times when society looks at disabilities, we go for the ones that we can see.
Mm,
And like a lot of people, if I'll tell them I have a learning disability,
mhm,
they'll say, well, you don't look like you're disabled. And well, I
Yeah.
have a disability that's hidden. And I think in terms of education, a lot of times the focus is on what the person can't do rather than what the person can do.
Yeah.
I can remember going through school, and eventually I was in all regular ed classes except for math and a resource room.
Yeah.
And I developed a lot of strategies on how to be successful as long as we weren't using math or science pretty much. And I knew that I wanted to go to college. And I can remember I had some teachers who didn't think that I could do it. In fact, because
Mm.
I remember one was telling me, you can't go to college because of your math. And she was suggesting a trade school.
Mhm.
And I just, nothing there interested me. But I still decided I was going to go on to college. And thankfully did have some people that were supportive as well. I had a teacher that was a student teacher, and she said, I think you can do college because you know how to study.
Mhm.
And just some other wonderful supportive ones who could focus on what I could do.
Mhm.
Uh, but even when I got done with high school, there were still a lot of people that didn't really quite understand that as well. I can remember I had to get tested for having a learning disability before I can get services on campus.
Mhm.
And the psychiatrist who evaluated me said that it was most likely I wouldn't go beyond a community college. And and then once I got there, there was a stigma around using accommodations, that they were cheating.
Mhm.
And I had another professor that told me, you're going to have limited job choices with your disability. And that was really hard. So a lot of the emphasis, I think, in education is what the problem is, what the deficit is, and rarely on, well, how can this be a gift?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that because I know there are probably kids going through that right now. When
Mhm.
people they look up to who's supposed to help them and educate them or diminishing their ability to succeed and to be successful in life. I think that's an issue in the education system, and it's everywhere,
Yes.
everywhere. My son
Mhm.
has a speech delay, and
Okay.
obviously, as a parent, I get worried, right? I
Mhm.
understand him. He has a hard time expressing himself to other people, and he
Mhm.
gets frustrated because the way he says something, I may not understand it. So I find ways to communicate with him, to ask him, please show me what you're trying to say. And it's been working, but that's a fear that I have.
Mhm.
I've been debating, should I just homeschool him or just send him out into the wild, to fight and to survive by himself. It's very sad that that happens. Um, I also use
Mhm.
disability services in local university here,
Good.
and I did find there was stigma, and because of
Mhm.
those stigmas, I felt like crap. It does impact someone's self-esteem and everything else. Um, what were your parents' outlook on what you had to go through?
My parents never gave up on me.
Mm,
That was the main thing that I think I just credit to them, is they were the kind of parents that they could see the good things that I could do, but they also built a lot of resilience in me. We would spend a lot of tearful homework sessions,
mhm,
but I'd have to go to school, whether I was having an issue with my peer, because I was bullied a lot, or if I was studying for a test and
mhm,
we all knew I wasn't going to do well on it. I still had to go to school and face that. So that built some resilience that,
mhm,
okay, I can go in. It may not be the most ideal situation, but we can work through it. They also advocated for me in meetings.
mhm,
And during the time when I was in school, they didn't invite students to go to their individual education plan meetings. But my
mhm,
mom would say, hey, I'm going to your meeting on this day. Is there anything you want me to bring up? And she would bring up things that I might have been concerned about, or things that I
mhm,
wanted to say. And she'd tell me about the meeting and what happened. That was more towards post-sec, my meetings where they were going to transition me to my post-secondary goals.
mhm.
But nevertheless, and they also were very much explaining that I had a learning disability and I just learned differently.
Yeah.
And that was Yeah, definitely something I needed because a lot of my peers were telling me, that I wasn't smart, and that can really wear on somebody at that, especially at a young age.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they found out what I was good at. Reading and writing were always things that I gravitated towards. My dad read to me when I was little every night. I love books and I love to write. And that was one of the first things I thought, oh, I'm good at this. This is something that I have that I can do.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. You sound like you never quit, regardless of what happened or what people had to say. And your mom was your cheerleader, probably still is. Is she still around
Oh,
cheering you
yes.
on?
Yes.
That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. That's awesome. That makes me so happy to hear that. And I'm just wishing that, other kids could have parents like that that are supportive. Um, yeah, I'm still, it's still sad for me that kids go
Mm-hmm.
to school to learn, but they get bullied because they're
Yes.
different. I know all what it's like to be different, to feel different.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it doesn't take much for me to be different in a room because of the way I look, my skin color and hair.
Right.
I had to deal with that as well. How did you process what you went through in school with the other kids?
I think a big part of that was finding a lot of people that I could hang out with outside of my school community. That was a big
Yeah.
thing too, because having that acceptance, because everybody does go through school, and you have a reputation from the time that you start. And if you go to a really school that's not as diverse, that can be something that can impact you. So I found some other teens that were in a neighboring school district that were involved with an arts program, and that encouraged me to go out and find other groups in the community, and that helped with that acceptance. I'm still friends with some of these people 20 some years later, so that was a good move on my part. Writing has also been really healing for me. uh,
Mhm.
when I write my feelings, I have a voice, and there's just maybe some things I didn't want to tell somebody else, but I could put that and write it down and have that voice and that freedom. And that even became with getting the first article published. That was probably one of the most healing things I did. I had a friend in a writing group that told me, you should really write about having a learning disability. And I thought initially, no way. Yeah, this is too personal. And I think I wrote some bad poetry for years instead. But once I wrote that first article, it was the most freeing thing and helped me to process a lot of my feelings.
Mhm. That's awesome. I write too. And like you said, it's a voice. It
Mm-hmm.
like my English is not the best. It's a hard language, but when I write, when it's coming from the heart, it's truly healing and inspiring. And yeah, it gives us a voice. And I love that you do that as well.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yeah. What are some ways that you advocate for what you're doing right now?
One of the ways I get to advocate is when I go to work. The kids all know, do not ask me for help with math. They know that, but there's other ways I can help them, like with their English and their reading and their spelling words. And I'm also advocate for myself when I'm at my job. I will tell them I have a learning disability, especially if it's a new teacher that I'm working with or a new boss. I have to tell them that I have a learning disability in math. So I cannot do that, and they're okay with that. And
Mhm.
just sometimes I might just have to ask somebody for extra clarification on things,
Mhm.
what they want me to do with processing. But it's just that speaking up, and it's learning to say things in a nice way, but also that it gets the point across that there's just certain things that are that I need.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, advocacy, that's so important. And so many of us, I think, struggle to do that for
Mhm.
ourselves. Sometimes we do it for others, it's easier, but for
Right.
ourselves, it's hard. What would you say to anyone who wants to advocate for themselves, but they don't know how or where to start?
I think the first thing that you have to do is you have to know what your needs are and what your disability is. So it's really important to educate yourself on that and to think about it. I think that's the first step. And, and I also think it gets easier with practice. even if you practice with a family member or a friend and just go over asking for things and how we do that. And so that we're saying things that in a way that it's assertive, but it's also we're saying, but in a way that doesn't make you look like a jerk either too. I think that's a big thing. And just to know who you are and what you need and to find a way to ask that is definitely important.
Yeah, I agree. What is a paraeducator? Did you already mention that a little bit, or tell
Sure.
us more?
A paraeducator is a teacher's aide, and they help assist the teacher with the students in the classroom. And I'll work with some students that have disabilities. Some of them don't. Some just need that little extra reinforcement to help what the teacher is saying. Others might need tests read to them. Just a little bit of extra help with the work, and we just try to meet the needs that they have.
Oh, okay, that must be a very fulfilling job to do.
It is so rewarding to be able to do that. This past year, I worked with 7th graders, and a lot of times when I'm in the classroom, it was like hearing a recording of myself at that age. I can remember I'll hear a lot of students say, I hate having my learning disability, or I hate having my individual education plan. And I get to tell them, well, having a disability isn't a bad thing. And the IEP that you have, that's there to help you. And I also get that chance to do some things that maybe somebody did for me when I was younger. I get to retest to students, and I just know what a difference that makes is having an accommodation. And one of my favorite things, though, is having this unique perspective with having a disability to be able to go in and understand what they're thinking to a point, and I'll also show them how to advocate for themselves. And last year we had a student that needed help in a class, and this was a class that I wasn't in, and she really needed help with it, and she was too afraid to ask the teacher. So I said, well, I'll go with you. Here's how we ask for things. And sure enough, she got the help that she needed in that class and was successful.
Wow, that's awesome. Uh, that's a big impact to make on many kids' lives, because often kids can feel alone or lonely, not only at home, but in the classrooms. So I'm so happy to hear that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Tell us more about your blog, Michelle's Mission. What inspired you to write it, which you've been telling us, but tell us more. How do you write it, and what are the people that are reading it?
Sure. What inspired me to write it was to have a connection with other people that have disabilities. And what I write is I typically put a lot of metaphors with having a learning disability. I connect a lot with nature. So we might do the process of accepting my disability, like a flower that is blooming can be one of them, or building a house. That's another metaphor that I've had. And I talk about what it means to have a learning disability, but I just try to connect people with other things to just kind of clarify some of that, some of the stuff that people might be confused with. I also put in photography into my blog. That's another passion of mine. I have people that tell me that sometimes I bring out details that other people might miss in a flower. So I've learned that this has happened if we're in the car, because I can't drive with my visual perception, and my husband will be driving and I'll say, did you see that? And I'll be like, no, I'm focusing on driving, as he should be.
Yeah.
And I get these, I'll be able to see a flower, see something really neat. And oftentimes I can go back to that place on my walk when I don't have a ride, or if I just feel like taking a walk, and I'll get to take that picture of a flower and I get to post that. And I try to post that on my blog. The goal is I try to post every 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a little longer than that, and I'm in the process of updating it with pictures and everything. But yeah, I just started the blog so I could connect with other people that have disabilities, and a lot of the people that like my blog, other than family and friends, or other people that have learning disabilities or another type of neurodiversity. And I get a lot of parents too that their child has a disability as well.
Yeah. That's so cool. I take lots of pictures too, and I love to be out I'm always taking pictures, and my daughter will be like, how many pictures have you taken already? Yeah, I think we're similar in that sense because someone will just go by it or take a picture far away. I go up to it and I zoom in and I get just different angles. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a very fun hobby.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
do you do arts or any other arts that you do?
I do a little bit of painting. My
Me
husband is
too.
much better. Yeah, a little bit
Yeah,
of
I'll
but
show
I
you.
can make.
I was painting this today.
Let's see.
Yeah, I've been painting.
Nice. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a
Uh,
bunch of other ones I do as well. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I like to do the flowers, and a lot of them turn into abstract. I love my husband. He could do more of impressionism, and I'm like, I wish I could paint like that. And he'll look at mine and go, I wish I could do what you do. So it's
Mhm.
kind of
That's
a nice way
awesome.
to
Yeah, it
just
takes practice and
yeah.
it takes passion,
Yes.
practice, and it takes time. I'm learning it takes time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Are there some projects that you're currently working on? I know you do blogging and
I
photography.
do. I was recently published in an anthology, three of my
Oh,
stories
yeah.
and it's on Amazon. I
Oh,
went to a workshop where people were rediscovering their purpose. Some people have been through with mental health struggles in recovery, and others have been through other substance abuse.
mm,
And just me with just having a learning disability and accepting that has been a journey for me. And we had some writing prompts, and they
mm,
put them in a book. And yeah,
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Um, yeah, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I see myself in the next 5 years helping people in some capacity, whether that's at the school doing that, or whether it's through my blog and expanding that outwards. But I definitely want to be in something where I can combine creativity and helping others.
That's awesome. Um, what are some of the hardest challenges that you had to face and you learned something positive from them?
I think some of the hardest challenges I've had to face is anything that has been math or science related in school. Those were some hard things, but what I learned from that was um, that I could definitely get through that, and I also could plan and find programs that didn't have a lot of that in there.
Mhm,
I've had jobs that haven't always worked out, that were very technical, and I can just see that what maybe that wasn't the right fit for me. And I was so grateful that that was revealed, that that's not the right thing, but it made me into a stronger person, that I could go
mhm,
out and find things that were, and to be able to use a lot of the advocacy skills. And
mhm, mhm,
those things have really helped out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, tell us something interesting about you that a stranger wouldn't know.
Something that a stranger may not know about me is I definitely love butterflies. Unless I had a butterfly outfit on, but if I was just, that's one of our things.
Mhm.
And every year we grow butterflies. So we have some right now that are just getting ready to hatch.
That's awesome. I love butterflies too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I painted two separate butterfly. I did a butterfly lady. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, that's awesome. Um, yeah, I'm thinking of questions to ask you. Who did you look up to growing up?
I always looked up to my dad. We've always had great conversations, and
Hmm.
he influenced a lot in my life.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. What is your biggest fear?
I'm not a big fan of heights.
You wouldn't go, you know, those people who do who jumps from what is it? I don't know what it's parachuting, but they jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like heights either.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, what are some hobbies that you enjoy? Obviously you do photography. Anything else
I
you
like to
enjoy?
read. I yeah, definitely like to write. I also like to go on walks, and I also like to go to our local YMCA and do group exercise classes. I'm not great on individual sports with my disability, but I like to go to some of the non-competitive group fitness classes and things
Mhm.
like that. Definitely nature is always something good. I like to go, my husband and I like to go to botanical gardens, and we also like to go to museums
Yeah.
and plan fun adventures. I
Mhm.
always joke around that maybe in the past, that maybe I missed my passion being a travel agent, because I always like to go and look for
Mhm.
places and
Yeah.
visit and find us good deals on hotels and activities.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, you like to read. What are three books that you would recommend to my audience and why?
I like My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult, because I definitely think that it's just very interesting when you look at the characters that are in there.
Mhm.
And you just, her books always get you to think. I definitely like that one. Trying to think of some of the other ones that I read. One of the an interesting one I read was Brain Damage by Frida McFadden, and that was a person that had some memory loss, and there was fiction, but there was a little more to the story than she realized. And let's see, a third one might be another Jodi Picoult one, Handle with Care. It's about someone that has uh, a disease with their bones where they break a lot. And it just gives that different perspective of just the
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah, yeah, those are really good books, they sound like. Um,
Mhm.
for your eyesight, what is it like? I recently got glasses.
Well, yeah,
Yeah. Um,
I,
yeah, go ahead.
ironically, it's not with my eyes, it's with my brain. So I have pretty much normal vision, and it's just how my brain will perceive objects and my reaction time. Like I can't use an escalator because I just don't know when can go on and get off of one safely. I can remember in school, it was really hard at gym class because anytime anything comes in contact with my eyes, I flinch. So
Mhm.
that and with driving, I'm not able to do that because it involves coordinating my body
Yeah.
and just, yeah. Uh, yeah,
Mhm.
because one of the first things we knew that driving was going to be a challenge. So we waited a while before we attempted to get my license,
Mhm.
uh, or even thought about it.
Mhm.
And one of the first tasks was we want you to go and mow the field, because my parents lived in the country. And instead
Mhm.
of really nice, long, straight, perfect lines, we ended up having circles. So I always joke around that that's where crop circles come from.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, I don't drive either. Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it has to do with my vision, but mostly my brain, because
Oh,
I get them 24/7 outer body experiences, so I'm not really grounded.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and both of my eyes, they see different. It's weird. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it is. So I got glasses. I don't know, they help me focus. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
Is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't shared yet?
And none that I can think of.
Okay. Where can my listeners find you to support what you're doing?
You can find me at my blog, michellesmission.blog,
Hmm.
or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all that you do. It was great connecting with you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Bernadette. It was great connecting with you as well.
You're welcome.